Dare to falsify this mathematical model of homeopathy? In The Organon of Medicine, Hahnemann put careful effort to describe the equilibrium between vital force and disease agents. So, the following is true. V is almost equal to D. Let's mark it as statement 1, where V is equal to vital force, and D is equal to disease force. Here, the vital force is the abstraction of the immune defense of the organism. In health, the vital force is almost equal to disease force. An explanation of this equation is going to prove Hahnemann as the philosophical father of immunology. Vaccination as a branch of homeopathy. Immunotherapy as a branch of homeopathy. Homeopathy as the premature child of science. Let's see how. When the vital force is greater than the disease force as said in statement 3, disease agents are overpowered by the vital force. But when the vital force is smaller than the disease force as said in statement 4, the vital force is overpowered by the disease agents. According to Hahnemann, symptoms are essentially the language of the vital force to speak out its ailment. In this regard, Hahnemann's concept of symptoms is almost equivalent to modern concept of immune responses to invading disease agents. This effort of Hahnemann to view symptoms as immune responses put some modern medical practices into question. For example, Hahnemann never approved the use of any medicine or methods which suppress these immune responses. So for Hahnemann, symptoms themselves comprise the most essential parts of the vital defense or the immune power. In statements 1, 2, and 3, vital force is indeed a set of immune responses such as inflammation, swelling, runny nose, itching, heat, humoral immune responses, cell-mediated immune responses, etc. So, the following is supposed to be true. Here, vital force has been deemed as the set of immune responses such as immune response A, immune response B, immune response C, and so on. So, from statement 1 and statement 4, we can deduce as following. Here, the statement 5 has been generated by replacing the left side of statement 1 with statement 4. Surprisingly, the statement 5 can effectively define the pharmacodynamics of vaccine, immunotherapy and homeopathy. In fact, most of the medical system aims at turning the disease equilibrium, V less than D, into a healthy one, that is, any treatment aims at turning the diseased equilibrium into the healthy equilibrium between the vital force and the disease force. For example, in immunotherapy, synthetic immune agents are supplied to the patient's body by increasing the immune responses on the left side of the balance between vital force and disease force. In vaccination, the left side of the equilibrium or the target immune response are generated prior to the target infection through the administration of the specific attenuated germ. So, in case of vaccination, the statement 5 is as following. Now, the big question is how statement 5 explain the mechanism of action of homeopathic medicine. In this episode, I will explain only one of several mechanisms of actions of homeopathic medicines with the following statement. Before our attempt to explain the mechanism of action of homeopathic medicines, we will learn about what homeopathy really is. In his book, The Science of Homeopathic Immunology, John Michel Warner defines homeopathy as following. Unlike the cheap layman's cure-like definition, homeopathy is indeed the study of operating the therapeutic effects of nano-stresses on organism, tensor, homeopathically. J. Warner. At the heart of this study sits a biological phenomenon which was observed by Hahnemann for the first time in the history of medical science. In several places of the organon, Hahnemann endeavored to tell about it. Hahnemann's postulation was indeed about how organism's immune system, vital force, responds to simultaneous multiple threats and how these responses can be manipulated to cure disease. In an article, Mathematical Interpretation of the Pharmacodynamics of Homeopathic Medicines, J. Warner summarizes the first part of this postulation. If the vital force detects two or more qualitatively similar threats simultaneously, it considers those threats as one unitary target and annihilates them with the same recuperative strategies. But if the threats are dissimilar in nature, the vital force employs different recuperative strategies to annihilate them. In other words, if challenged, the vital force annihilates multiple similar threats synchronously with the same recuperative strategies and dissimilar threats asynchronously with different recuperative strategies. In fact, this postulation of Hahnemann was his most brilliant scientific contribution, which is not only saving millions of patients but disturbing thousands of doctors, scholars and scientists around the world. Throughout the pages of the organon, Hahnemann endeavored to explain this postulation. This postulation of Hahnemann is apparently simple, self-evident and nothing extraordinary. That Hahnemann told about this immunological phenomenon when prominent scientists like Louis Pasteur, Edward Jenner knew nothing about the immune system. Hahnemann's postulation was the first credible enough explanation of how the immune system behaves when challenged by multiple threats. Who should be considered the father of immunology then? Now, is it possible to provide any mathematical explanation of this postulation of Hahnemann? Let's consider the statement, 5. In case of similar infections or threats, the vital force or immune system responds as following. Since, on the right side, the diseases are similar to each other, there will be no qualitative change in the immune responses on the left side. But the same immune response will increase on the left side. But in case of multiple dissimilar threats, the immune responses against each of the diseases are qualitatively different. So, the summation on each side of the equilibrium is not possible. That's why, our doctors advise their patients to stay at full bed rest in order to avoid new or dissimilar infections and to allow the vital force or the immune system to grow strong enough to build up effective defense against the disease. Can you imagine how much scientific Hahnemann's postulation was? Let's try to explain the mechanism of action of homeopathic medicines with the knowledge we have gained so far. From his postulation, Hahnemann was convinced enough to believe that if the immune responses on the left side of statement 5 can be increased by the means of similar artificial medicinal pathogenic agents, the enhanced immune responses will quickly take the hold of the invading disease. This way, the statement 5 will easily turn into the following. In disease, the equilibrium between the vital force and the disease is as following as in statement 10, where Vn is equal to vital force which is engaging with natural disease, and Dn is equal to natural disease. When a homeopathic medicines is applied, the vital force intercepts the medicine-induced disease, Dm, in the following manner as in statement 11, where vital force med is equal to vital force engaging with medicinal disease, and disease med is equal to medicine-induced disease. Since statement 10 and statement 11 both are true during the homeopathic treatment, we can sum statement 10 and statement 11. When homeopathic medicines are applied, medicine-induced disease, DMED, is added to the right side of this equilibrium, and eventually, the vital force on the left side is split up into two straits, VN and VMed, to fight off the two disease forces together. So, when homeopathic medicine is applied, the above-mentioned equation behaves as following. Here, since symptoms of natural disease, DN, and medicine-induced disease, DMED, are same, split-up vital forces VN and VMed are qualitatively same. As usually, their immune responses are also the same. This is how the minutely divided few molecules of homeopathic medicine induce strong immune responses. Hahnemann required that medicine-induced vital force must be stronger enough to take hold of the progressing disease. But at the same time, the medicinal disease must be the weakest so that the medicine-induced vital force can free itself from the medicine-induced disease and can pay attention to the progressing natural disease. How is it possible to induce the strongest immune responses with only few molecules, even one molecule, of medicine? Here, Hahnemann applied the technique of making one equal to many. Hahnemann's technique of making one equal to many, by repeating the dose. Suppose, each dose of our medicine, Hepar sulfur, contains only one molecule, and this molecule of Hepar sulfur causes severe damage to one cell at the route of administration. But surprisingly, one damaged cell releases n number of cytokines, prostaglandins, inflammatory interleukins and growth factors. So, Q number of damaged cells will release n multiplying Q number of immunity signaling chemicals. In this image, each of the Hepar sulfur molecules functions as a stimuli to a cytokine-releasing cell. Stimulated by the Hepar sulfur molecule, the cell releases a lot of cytokines which produce inflammation, activate immune cells and recruit macrophages, phagocytes, to the site of infection. Suppose, one molecule of Hepar sulfur activates P number of immune cells. If Q number of Hepar sulfur molecules are applied for R times, then the number of activated immune cells is PQR. The math is as following. One number of HS molecule activates P number of immune cells. Q number of HS molecule activates PQ number of immune cells. So, R number of applications activate PQR number of immune cells. So, out of PQR number of activated immune cells, P number of immune cells will engage with P number of Hepar sulfur molecules. Hence, PQRP, number of activated immune cells, will remain free to address the progressing disease. If one molecule for one time activates P number of immune cells, then Q number of molecules for R times will activate PQR immune cells. There are enormous free activated immune cells which will move towards the site of infections and take hold of the disease. This is the site of infection. The first dose of Hepar sulfur is applied here. The red dots indicate the activation of immune cells. The second dose of Hepar sulfur is applied here. The third dose of Hepar sulfur is applied here. Each site of administration will have surplus free activated immune cells. Free activated immune cells will move towards the site of infection. The recruitment of more immune cells to the infected site will cause sudden rise in all the symptoms of the disease, but eventually they will take hold of the disease. If we consider that the natural immune response, VN, to the natural disease is absent and the medicine-induced disease, DMED, is very trifle. The statement, 12, looks like following. Through repetition of doses, we can easily increase medicine-induced immune to such a state that will take hold of the disease. That is, we can turn the equilibrium from vital force, Vn, not equal to natural disease, Dn, to vital force, Vn, greater than natural disease, Dn. Does Hahnemann deserve the Nobel Prize posthumously? Approximately after 70 years of Hahnemann's death, Elie Metchnikoff won the Nobel Prize for his discovery of phagocytes. For his contribution, he is considered the father of natural immunity. But long before Elie Metchnikoff's discovery, Hahnemann draws the sketches of the immune system, which he called vital force. Not only he discovered the immune system, but also he invented a mathematically sound method of using its response to multiple diseases therapeutically. Nope. We don't claim the Nobel Prize for Hahnemann. Simply, we want the acknowledgement for the world for Hahnemann's contribution to medical science.